The next conversation is on content creators on TikTok, on Instagram, everywhere you can think of. And the whole idea about the democratization of creativity, how right now everyone is a creator, whether you are a grandma in, Maine or, Charlie D'Amelio. So, we're going to have this session run by dear friend who lives and breathes everything social media and content creators, Max Levine. He is the COO of AMP Studios. Max, how's it going?
It's going well. Thanks for having me and us, Boye.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this next conversation. Before you go do the conversation, I have a couple questions for you.
Yeah, of course.
One, what is your favorite brand campaign on the TikTok platform?
I really like what Chipotle has been doing. I just think they're like a really cool company, and they're doing one right now. I think it's, if I'm correct, it's Chipotle. It's around Chipotle sponsoring just like general creators from the platform, and kind of like you guys were touching on in the last session. Like, and I know what this is, based on is everyone is a creator. So it's really cool because it's like allowing people to unleash their creativity and like potentially, work with a brand like Chipotle. So I think what they're doing is super cool. They're really innovative, and they're like really all in on TikTok.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Before you introduce everybody else, do you want to tell us a little bit about you and who you are and what you do?
Yeah, for sure. So as I mentioned, my name is Max. I'm the COO of AMP Studios. So we're a content studio and creator incubator. We're generating around 1 billion views per month. Some of our top creators are Brent Rivera, who has an audience of 63 million. Lexi Rivera, she has 17 million. And Ben Azelart, who's going to be joining us, he has 15 million on social media. So yeah, that's super high level background on what I'm up to.
Amazing. Well, I'm going to get out of your hair. Thank you so much for hosting this next panel, and enjoy.
Awesome. I'll try to do as well as you. Cool. So thank you everyone for joining this conversation. So as Woy mentioned, the title of this panel is Everyone is a Creator. Obviously, with what's going on nowadays, and social media is now mainstream media, it's really become apparent that like everyone is a creator, whether you're an actual physical, personality and content creator yourself, a media company, a brand, everyone is doubling down on digital and trying to build their brands on these platforms. So we have 3 people joining us for this panel. The first one, Ben Azelart, who I previously alluded to. Ben, welcome to the party, my man.
Hey guys, how's it going?
So we're definitely excited to have you, Ben. And we have 2 more fine people. Next up is Pierson Wodznyski. Pierson is a creator who has 2 million followers on TikTok, and that's just happened the last several months. So you're crushing it, Pierson. Welcome.
Thank you.
And then lastly, we have RJ Larese. RJ is the VP of Talent and Development for ViacomCBS, and he oversees brands such as Nickelodeon, Nick Jr., and AwesomenessTV. Welcome, RJ.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. So kind of getting into things is, let's do some, icebreakers so, we can get into things very gently. Ben, obviously, like a lot of your content is very fun and daring. So going to put you on the spot here. So what is the craziest dare that you've done for content?
Craziest dare. I do a lot of dare content, a lot of crazy stuff. I'd say the craziest one is this one time I let my friend Lexi Hensler shoot me with a paintball gun as I ran this like 30-foot like stretch shirtless. So I had to run from like point A to point B. It's like 30 feet, and I let her open fire on me with a paintball gun. I had like safety gear on my face and stuff, but I got hit on my like back and stuff, and it was really fun. But that's probably the craziest thing I've done for sure.
And every week you're doing crazy stuff too, but you gotta stay safe, my man.
Yeah.
Next up, Pierson. So obviously you're focused on creating content, daily, but like what do you like to do outside of creating? Like what's like your getaway hobby?
Yeah, definitely. Fortunately, I live very close to the beach. Unfortunately, right now the beaches are closed, but before they were closed, I would go to the beach a lot, play beach volleyball, run around. All my workouts would be on the beach just to get some sun, get out of the house. But But yeah.
Love it. There's definitely perks living next to the beach. I do too, so I love it. Cool. And then on to RJ. So RJ, who is your childhood idol?
So mine is a dated answer for this conversation, but it actually connects back to something that's relevant now. Mine was Rosie O'Donnell when I was growing up, because her talk show was the place everyone would go to just feel good about themselves and to feel that feeling of entertainment. And it connects back to everything I do now. I always think about, why do we need to greenlight this? Why do we want to work with this talent? What emotion does it cause somebody to feel? And that goes back, I watch Rosie because she made me feel good. People will watch horror movies because it scares them, and creators like Sam and Colby because it scares them or frightens them. But people will watch people like the two creators that are on this call because there's enjoyment and it makes them feel happy, it makes them laugh. And Rosie O'Donnell was that for me a very long time ago.
I love it. She's a great, a great, creator, if you will. Yeah, I guess kind of getting into everything. Obviously, we had like an icebreaker, but it would be great if you guys can just explain more about yourselves and your backgrounds to everyone. So, Ben, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah. So my name is Ben. I'm a content creator. I make videos on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all that. I've been making videos for about 3 years now. And I post weekly content on YouTube, and I think daily content on TikTok, and same with Instagram. So I'm kind of always busy with that, and that's kind of what I've dedicated like all of my time to, because I love it so much. It's my job, and it's also like my passion. So I create pretty much every day of the week, and it doesn't really feel like work to me. But yeah, that's pretty much what I do. I make like crazy, daring. Not every video is like that, but a lot of my videos are like crazy vlogs, challenges, stuff with my friends, and a lot of it's just like, I guess, keeps you on your toes and makes you want to come back next week. So that's pretty much what I do.
Awesome. Pierson, how about yourself?
I'm also a content creator, very new to this whole thing. I recently got signed with AMP Studios the day after my 21st birthday, best 21st birthday present ever. But I had been super creative all growing up, and then I never really knew what to do with it. I was just like, I tried photography, I tried running track and field, I tried getting into marketing, and nothing really stuck for me. And then I started posting like Instagram videos, a little bit of YouTube videos, but not a ton. And that was kind of what kind of got the ball rolling for finally posting on social media. And then eventually I met Brent, and he was like, hey, come hang out with the crew. And then we all hit it off really great. And then ever since then, we've been creating a bunch of videos, and I'm just so glad that I can be a part of something. And they've really helped me like understand my love for creating videos. Awesome.
RJ, the floor is yours.
So, I have a strange background. I actually started in the reality talk show, game show, unscripted space. So I started off interning and then briefly working at Ellen DeGeneres' talk show. I worked on some game shows like Deal or No Deal and some other ones, casting those towards the beginning of my career. And then I transitioned to the development producing side. Back in the day, there was a network called Style Network, developed and produced a lot for them. And then I transitioned I worked at ABC in daytime, and then my first time working in digital was at ABC back a few years ago with an initiative called ABCD. The D was for digital. So we made a lot of digital original content for YouTube, for Snapchat, and a few other places. I went over to a company called Pop Sugar that makes female millennial geared content and helped up the ante in terms of their usage of influencers, working with celebrities. We had a big event called Pop Sugar Playground with Tiffany Haddish, Kate Hudson, and then a lot of other creators in the fitness space. That was really fun to start that up. And then I came over to Nickelodeon and to Awesomeness a little under 2 years ago, and have been tasked with both brands and working with the best cutting edge creators, making a lot of fun content. And it's been my favorite job in my past and in my history.
Fantastic. So I guess, piggybacking off the last panel, which is obviously TikTok orientated. I know, Boye asked everyone what their favorite platform was. So it'll be great if everyone could touch on their favorite platform right now, starting with Ben.
Yeah, so I love every platform, honestly. I use them all every day. But if I had a favorite to pick, it'd probably be YouTube, because that's just the platform where I can make my longest form content and put like my most effort into one video. And I guess just watch like my masterpiece once I finished it. It's like a 10-minute movie that I made every week. And that's really cool for me because I just get to watch my week every Sunday and then start that again next week. So YouTube for sure.
So I think it's actually an aside. I didn't have this written down, but like how long does a YouTube video take compared to a TikTok video?
For me, I'd say a TikTok would take about like 20 to 30 minutes. I like to do my stuff over and over and over until I get it right. So I'm not like a first take kind of guy that just does it once and then that's it. I like to, really get it good. So TikTok would take about 20 minutes. YouTube video, it takes about like 3 hours to plan it, get it all set up, and then I got to film it, which takes about probably anywhere from like 6 to 10 hours. Some videos take actually a whole 24 hours if the video is like a 24-hour challenge. And then there's editing, which is another like 6 or 7 hours. So I would say a lot of my time is spent on YouTube.
Yeah, it's obviously like a much different world. Pierson, how about yourself?
I would have to say TikTok. It used to be YouTube, and then TikTok came into the picture. I don't know. I just love the fast way of seeing all these different content in a matter of 5 minutes. You've already seen 30 TikToks in a matter of 5 minutes, and I just love that fast pace. Like you get the joke, it lands, it's done. I would say I get a lot of my inspiration from TikTok. Like a lot of my videos are very similar. Like just the quick, you get the joke across, and people laugh, people are happy, they keep going. I just can watch TikTok all the time for hours on end. Right before I go to bed, I watch TikTok. When I wake up, I watch TikTok. It's crazy, but yeah, it's just really cool to see a lot of different creative people. If they see something relatable, they're like, "Hey, that's happened to me before. I'm going to create a video out of it." And I'm like, "Awesome! This person does it too. I don't have to feel weird that I do it as well." So I like the relatableness of TikTok.
Yeah, and obviously, like that was the start for you, so it makes a ton of sense. RJ, how about yourself?
So I've got two answers.
Yeah, I figured.
Discovery, I love watching YouTube because a lot of times it's really hard to tell what a creator is like just simply on TikTok. And I have a ton of talent meetings across a week, and I really sometimes don't know when I'm meeting with someone who's popular on TikTok what I'm going to get in the talent meeting. YouTube, because it's longer form content, it's better for me in terms of talent discovery. I like to see those longer videos that don't have a ton of edits in them, so I can really gauge somebody's personality. For personal enjoyment and also kind of talent discovery, TikTok is amazing. I feel like at first I felt really old when I would hop on and I tried to do a TikTok towards the beginning and failed miserably. It's not for me to make, but I love watching TikToks. I think it's really fun.
Yeah. And it's like, I think TikTok right now is just like really popular with everyone who's like not a teenager, maybe like several months ago or a few years ago. But now it's like people in their 20s, 30s, 40s watch TikToks. It's like the normal thing to do. So awesome. So I guess kind of getting into the meat and potatoes here. So obviously 10, 20 years ago, when a lot of us were growing up, more so like RJ and me, Nickelodeon and Disney, they were the big players and the big mediums for kids and teens to watch and consume content. And given what's happening in social media and all these platforms that are popping up, there's now more of a competition for content. So RJ, this is for you. So how has your experience been stewarding Nickelodeon into this digital age? And would you be able to provide any insight into how Nickelodeon has shifted its ideology since you joined the team a few years back?
So I actually started at Nickelodeon at a really interesting time when we didn't have a president, and the president that we ended up getting has been unbelievable. A guy named Brian Robbins, who worked at Nickelodeon back in the day. He started the company Awesomeness, and now he's at the helm of Nickelodeon and Awesomeness again. And when I started Nickelodeon, I feel like Nickelodeon viewed YouTube as a competitor and creators as competitors. And they are in some ways, but there's a way to work with creators to give them what they want, for us as a network to get what we want, and for everybody to be happy in the long run. I think ignoring YouTube and creators put a lot of brands in an interesting place. And I'm really happy that Nickelodeon values the creator and influencer side now. My best example that I can give is we started working with a 14-year-old at the time influencer, Annie LeBlanc, a little over a year and a half ago, and started off with digital videos. And the success, our audience loves her, her audience loves us. And so I'll talk about it a little bit later, but we built a talent development plan that has resulted in a scripted show based around her and her best friend, and an unscripted show we announced Tuesday with her and her best friend. And we figured out a great way to work with creators in that capacity. And that's one case study. There have been a ton of examples in my time there. And there are many more examples that will come in the future. There are some announcements coming up that are very exciting. But working with creators and, again, giving them what they want, everybody can be happy. Creators aren't competitors. We can all work together.
For sure. And it's been really interesting to see how, Viacom and Nickelodeon has just really immersed themselves in the space in the last year. And it's definitely pretty incredible. So this one is for Ben and Pierson. This is kind of on the opposite side of the last question. So, 10, 20 years ago, it was more so linear television and film. Now kids are growing up with Instagram, TikTok, YouTube that are like the power players for content, right? So would you guys be able to provide insight into how you go about creating content, how you get ideas for videos? I know you spend a lot of time on that stuff. So yeah, any insight on that I think would be helpful.
Yeah, so for me, when I look for an idea, I pretty much go for what's trending, what are people looking at, what are people watching, what's like the hottest thing right now. And you either take something similar to that or you make it your own. I like to just, on YouTube, there's a lot of like trendy ideas and things that you can like get a general idea of and then completely make it your own because, you're your own person. So if you find a challenge that's like, for example, like a 24-hour challenge doing something, like you can just do that same challenge, but just with your own take, with your own friends, with your own personality in it, and it just becomes your own video. But I look for a lot of like, do a lot of research on like TikTok and Instagram and YouTube of like what are people doing, what's trending, what's doing well, and I just kind of gauge of like, can I take this and put it into this, and then I make an idea. Yeah. I
guess piggybacking off that, obviously there's creators like David Dobrik, Mr. Beast, who are just pushing the envelope. Is it ever hard to keep up with them or try to push the envelope when there's so many other great creators out there?
Yes and no. I just kind of stay in my own lane and look at myself as like, if I feel like I'm doing well and I'm happy and content with what I'm making, then I'm, doing my best. I don't try to stay up there with any other creators because they're their own person and they're in their own lane. And I feel like my content is different than a good amount of other creators. So I guess I'll just do my own thing, and I guess that's it. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. Pierson, how about you?
Yeah, going off of Ben, I would say very similar style of finding inspiration. Just being able to look at YouTube and Instagram and all these different social media apps, you see so much content all the time. And it's just a matter of taking that content, taking inspiration from that and creating it into your own. Like if you see like a 24-hour challenge, maybe you see that that's a 24-hour challenge, but maybe you can do that in a different setting or something like that. Take inspiration, but make it your own. That's one way that I kind of find inspiration, as well as in my everyday life. Anytime that I'm walking down the street and I see something that I'm like, hey, this could be pretty funny or kind of like a cool video or whatever, I'll always jot it down in my Google Docs on my phone. That's the only thing that I'm actually organized with, is that, because I know that I'll forget it. So what I do is anytime I'm doing my normal day-to-day life, if I have any ideas, I'll jot them down, and yeah, there's inspiration everywhere. So I just make sure to utilize that. Totally.
So next one's for RJ. So, again, 10, 20 years ago when YouTube, TikTok, all these platforms weren't as prevalent, there wasn't as much of a discussion for where does this content live? Obviously, you have content now on YouTube and digital platforms and linear as well. How do you guys decide to kind of divvy that up between all these different platforms?
So we really work hand in hand, and this is a great question for this week because on Wednesday we announced 2 shows. One that's called Game Face, and one that's called Group Chat. One is a little bit more of a game showy sort of feel, and Group Chat's a little bit like a watch what happens live for the hip and upcoming teens that are watching the network. That one's hosted by Annie LeBlanc and Jaden Bartels, her best friend. And on both shows, we're going to have a mix of celebrities and stars on social media. And that's really what our audience wants to see. So melding those 2 things together. Our digital team is actually producing that content for linear, for our cable network, so that it has a digital sensibility, but it's airing on TV, on cable. Our social team is working really hard to make sure that there are exclusives or components that we can put up on YouTube. When we get projects, like one came in very recently, our social team was in there, our YouTube development team was in that meeting, and so is our unscripted development team. And we have conversations. There are times, for example, where it's easier to pilot a show up on our YouTube and use that as an incubation for shows for linear television. We do the same thing with talent, by the way. But we have other linear shows. We had one earlier this year called America's Most Musical Family. And that series, we had David Dobrik as a judge. We had some talent that's from the more traditional area that we're hosting and also judges on the panel. But for YouTube, we had exclusives, and Ben actually hosted one of them. We had a behind-the-scenes show that went up on our YouTube, and Ben hosted all of that content. So we really work hand in hand, and depending on the project, decide if it's good for linear television, good for YouTube, or if we can have components that hit both.
Yeah, it definitely makes a lot of sense. And I think what's cool about now, like if you pilot something on YouTube, you can get more real-time feedback on it versus if you're piloting it on linear, you have less data, right? So it just makes a lot more sense.
Well, an example, TikTok for us, Nickelodeon just hit a little above 7 million, which is great for us, for our brand. But TikTok's great because we can get our audience to fall in love with the Nickelodeon brand that they know and love. Facebook's great with our nostalgic audience. So we've had 3 original shows, one hosted by Anthony Padilla, one hosted by Joey Graceffa, and one hosted by MatPat. And those were original shows living on Facebook that hit our nostalgic audience, but with creators that they love hosting it. So YouTube obviously is our place to pilot talent for linear. So the social platforms has its advantages, and we have original content on every platform.
Definitely makes a lot of sense. And Ben, I guess transitioning into you, personally, I just find your story extremely fascinating. 2.5 years ago when we started working together, you're just a kid from Hawaii who was 15, who had 80,000 followers on Instagram. Now you have 15 million across, TikTok and Instagram and YouTube 2.5 years later. Can you just describe what that process has been like for you, your family, what you've learned, and just kind of provide insight for some people about your journey?
So it's been a crazy journey for sure, to say the least. Started, 2.5 years ago when I was living in Hawaii, going to high school. I was a freshman in high school, and I got this weird spark of inspiration from hanging out with these people that were making these lifestyle videos in Hawaii. And I got this inspiration to make these videos of my life in Hawaii, going to the beach, going on hikes, the island life. So I filmed my life in Hawaii for about 7 months with really no return. There was not a lot of views coming back. I just honestly loved doing it so much. And then it started to pick up, and I was getting some attention for these videos that I was making in Hawaii. And I was whoa, this is actually something. People are saying they watch my videos. People are saying they love my content. And then it transitioned to more of what I'm doing now after I met people like Brent and everyone that lives around me now in Huntington Beach. And it's been crazy. I've transitioned into a lot of YouTube stuff when I was primarily Instagram at the beginning, and then now I'm doing more TikTok and pretty much doing everything at once. But it all went from me making lifestyle videos 15 years old in Hawaii, and then now it's what it is now.
Yeah, definitely a crazy journey, to say the least. And I guess when you're making content and posting it, obviously we mentioned RJ, just getting that feedback on these digital platforms. So when you post a YouTube video, what data points are you looking for, and what data points do you think are important for different creators and different media companies just to look for? Because again, there's just like so many metrics you can look at, but like, what are the most important ones that you try to prioritize?
Yeah, so I mean, it's easy to look at views because views are public and that stuff's open for everyone. But you want to make sure that the people that are watching the video are engaging in it and they actually are like consuming the content that's being posted, because someone can watch it and not really care about it and then keep going on with their day, you know? So you want to look at like who's commenting. Are they commenting about like stuff that's actually in the video? Are they liking the video? Are they subscribing? Because, you know, a view is a view. You want to make sure people are actually like getting hooked in by what you're doing. So I look at like watch time, how long people watch the video for. That's a big one, because you don't want people to just click on it and then click off. If they stayed like throughout the whole video, that's great, because that means they loved it, you know? So I look at watch time, and I look at how many people subscribe and how many people viewed it. And it just shows like who, I guess, cared. And yeah.
And I think it's like that stuff isn't really talked about that much. Like a lot of people are like really focused on views or likes or comments, but there's just really so much that goes into it. Even on Instagram, I know like a few years ago, we were talking about saves, right? The percentage of saves versus the reach, I think. So again, it's just really interesting just to see how you approach like the data side of things. But yeah, transitioning into Pierson, obviously like Ben's been going at this for a few years longer. But your story is pretty interesting. You know, it's been roughly 6 months that you've been focusing on this, and you've gone from 0 to over 2 million. Can you just maybe describe that process and what your life has been like and all that stuff?
Most definitely. So it was a completely 360. I went from going to my dream school, running track and field at UCSB, to leaving after my first year. I was like, you know what, something doesn't feel right. And I knew that there was like more. I wasn't satisfied. So I ended up leaving there probably at the end of December. I was just finishing my last semester at Elko, or you don't know what Elko is, at my community college. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to do what I love for this one semester. If it doesn't work out, I'll go back to school and figure it out. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to go all out. This is what I want to do. It's going off on a limb. And I know that it's very difficult to actually like progress as fast as I did in like my situation. But what I did was I just kept putting myself out there. And then eventually RJ, I actually met Brent on AwesomenessTV. But just everything went from me so unhappy. I was just like, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? I'm 20 years old. I don't know what I'm going to do, freaking out, to going for my dreams. And now I've got 2 million followers on TikTok, having the time of my life. So it was a 360, but I'm so happy it all happened.
And I really think what's interesting about that, like obviously that's like crazy numbers to think about, like 2 million in, you know, several months, but obviously like the goal is to like sustain that over a long period of time, right? And you know, I think you guys are, you know, can do that and, you know, have a process in place. But I guess transitioning back into RJ, like obviously now like there's a lot of these creators that are blowing up on social media, right? And there's a lot of value in that. But how does Nickelodeon and the Viacom properties, how do they decide who should we align with, given, hey, this person might not be around in a year or two, and your brand has been around for such a long period of time?
Well, what's amazing about the way that we work at both Nickelodeon and Awesomeness is that we make content so quickly that we're working with zeitgeisty people like the week after they hit, or weeks after they hit. We just did a COVID-19 special for Nickelodeon, and Charlie D'Amelio taught Kristen Bell, who was hosting, a dance. And I made the offer on a Tuesday, and the content went up the next Monday. So it's hard because we work so quickly. Like, we're not going to work with somebody who's ultimately going to be outdated by the time it airs, because it airs so quickly. Animation is the one place where there's a really long lead time for animation. And though I don't run point on our animation casting, we have an unbelievable team. We'll occasionally work with creators, and the lead time for animation can be up to a year or more. So that's really the only part of the business in which the lead time is so long that a creator could ultimately be irrelevant by the time the content starts airing, or have quit the business or whatever they want to do, or have burnout. We do work with talent in both capacities, short-term and more long-term. So for short-term, we have so many parts of the Nickelodeon and Awesomeness business where if you're making a YouTube video or you're coming to an event to celebrate SpongeBob, those are really short-term, smaller opportunities that can be happening. But then we have larger, like Annie LeBlanc, for example, like I mentioned earlier, we started to work on YouTube. Then we developed this cool summer interstitial campaign airing on the cable network, and our audience loved her there. And then we continued on and we developed this scripted show around her with one of our most seasoned writers and showrunners. So even that lead time, we decided we were making the show in, I think, December, and we were set to start shooting in March, right as all the COVID stuff happened. So obviously that's on hold for the time being while we can get back to safe production. But yeah, we don't encounter and haven't encountered yet a situation in which we're working with somebody that's maybe fizzled. We have very quick turnaround in all of our content.
Yeah, I definitely think that makes a lot of sense. And kind of like you mentioned, like you kind of test working with creators, and if you were to go into like a bigger project, you would have, kind of more context into that. So you don't just put all your eggs in one basket. Yeah, so Pierson and Ben, obviously a pretty hot topic recently has been creator collectives. So obviously you guys have a lot of insight into that, being a part of one, and then also being friends with a lot of creators who are in other ones. So would you be able to touch on like your experience in one, and also like why you think it's valuable for brands and different companies to be a part of it? And yeah, even long tail, like what separates, the better ones from ones that are maybe struggling a little bit?
Mm-hmm. So I think creator collectives are a very important thing. You get to have like all these friends and creators in one area that are always collaborating with each other. And it gives like the fans and the viewers this sense of like friendship and friend group. And I mean, everyone has like, friends and a friend group. And if it's small or big, people have friends, so people love to see other friends having fun, doing friend stuff, which is why I think it works really well, because people just are related to it. And for people like us and our creator collective, outside of the videos and outside of the content we make, we're actually like best friends. So we have that like best friend bond. So where on camera it looks the most organic, because we are friends besides everything. So that's why I think it works really well, and people like to see friends having fun in the area. And yeah.
And then I guess piggybacking off that real quick, it kind of coincides too with like the Nickelodeons and Disneys of the world, right? And I guess in my opinion, right, because for their programming, you have shows and you have different actors in it and different storylines and character arcs. I guess how do you guys kind of come up with the different storylines and character arcs for your content? Because as you mentioned, like it keeps people compelled and like following along your content from video to video.
Oh, for us, or for
yeah, more so from the creator side of things, like Ben or
yeah.
Pierson. Like I guess like how do you kind of go about like building out the storylines that like you guys intertwine into your content?
So I feel like it happens naturally and randomly, then we just kind of run with it. So if there's a storyline that we think's funny, like we less of like try to brainstorm and think of these storylines on the spot, and they kind of just appear from personal experiences. So if there was a funny experience that someone had with someone else, and we thought like we could bring that to the internet, then we'll kind of transition that into our content. So I don't think we don't necessarily like look for storylines and plan out our next move. It's just stuff that actually happens organically, and then we're like, that'd be so funny if we started treating this person this way, or portraying them as this, or yeah, it's pretty organic, and we just kind of run with it once we figure it out.
And I think what's cool just about like how you guys create, there's so much flexibility in it, right? Like you guys kind of come to the table every day to create content, and there's a lot of flexibility, and you really don't have like predetermined plans, or it doesn't have to be a certain way. You can kind of go with the flow, which obviously creates a lot of fun moments. Pierson, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so interesting because it's like watching your favorite TV show. You're watching these people, but they're not all the same. Everyone has their own different personality. So it's not really scripted. It's just kind of like, oh, if Ben is like the adventurous one who's going to run across a wall and get shot by a paintball gun, he might do that. I might not. So there's just different people for different positions in your video, and it just really does come naturally. So it's interesting to see how everything plays out. It has been great to be a part of a collective, just because not only are you able to like have a friendship online and like show everyone and have other people, like the viewers, want to be a part of it, but also having these different people. Like, I'm so early on into this adventure that I'm so thankful for people like Ben who can kind of direct me in the right direction if there's something that I don't know. Like, I'm still so new to like learning out like what's trending and all that stuff, but he's been able to like help me out with, okay, you look for keywords and all this stuff. And so he's been just being able to be a part of something, and everyone just gives off of each other. You're constantly learning something new.
Definitely. And I think what's really cool about it is it's just hard to do it on your own nowadays, because there's just like so much content out there. There's so much competition. And obviously when you pool resources together, it just makes things easier, right? But I guess transitioning into RJ, this is kind of similar to the last question, but how is Viacom tapping into the power of these creator collectives?
Yeah, so I mean, we've worked on both of the brands that I'm across. We've worked with collectives in two different ways, one individually and then one as a group. So for example, two members of Hype House have two separate projects at Nickelodeon right now that will be airing in the coming weeks. So we've utilized those individuals and are working with them on that basis. But as Max and Ben know, we've also worked with Brent Rivera and his crew, including Ben, and we had content with them where we flew them out to Italy and filmed their adventures in the Amalfi Coast. And that was a great way to work with the group together. So we work with creator collectives in both ways. And I personally love it because sometimes we find talent that are a little bit early on to start working with. And if they can be inserted in a content creator collective, it's amazing because they can grow a following. And then we can start working with them when they get to that level that it makes more sense for us to work with them.
Definitely. And it seems like, obviously, if being in a collective, like we touch on, it just helps come up with like different content, learn more, not be as isolated. But I guess kind of kicking it back to Ben and Pierson. So obviously, like, there's so much content that everyone is posting every day. I guess, like, how do you guys handle that? Like, are you ever overwhelmed or ever just like overburdened with like having to create this content? Because it's like a nonstop grind. And like, what I've always found interesting is like creators, they're not just talent now. They're, writers, producers, director, and the talent in their content. So I guess, like, how do you guys like approach this from just like a health perspective, just making sure you can handle, all these responsibilities?
So I always try to keep my weekends for my free days. So I keep my Saturday and Sunday for either me posting or me having fun. So I don't necessarily create content on the weekends. And I've really, really tried to implement that in my life because I think that's the best for my mental health, is giving me that two-day weekend to have fun with my friends or go outside or go work out, and not to worry about content, not to worry about creating. I might be posting, but I will not be like creating on the weekends. There's obviously exceptions. Sometimes I will create on the weekends, but I really try to implement that in my life. If I do feel like I'm overwhelmed, then I'll just not create content that day. But normally I bounce back the next day and I can get right back to it. But to me, it's not the end of the world if I have to take a day off or a few days off, if anything, as long as I'm getting my like weekly required content in. Like for myself, is I want to post a YouTube video every week. So as long as I'm getting that in, then we're good. But I can take a break on Instagram if I want to, or anything like that if it's, messing up my mental health. But it's a good balance.
Definitely. How about yourself, Pierson?
Definitely. I would just say I wouldn't say it's too much pressure. It's not pressure at all. If anything, it's just me trying to move forward and trying to push myself as much as I can. But obviously I'm going to make time for family, make time for myself, make time to relax, watch a movie, watch Netflix, because that's so important. I don't have a schedule yet, but I make sure that I have time for that mental health. But when you're doing what you love, it's kind of hard to be so overwhelmed. I mean, like, if I'm creating a video, all I want is for people to laugh. And if I'm doing that by posting this video, then it's not necessarily a burden to me. It's just, hey, I'm doing a good thing.
For sure. And I think what's really cool is something that I've just learned throughout this process is what's really important is just being passionate about creating content, because a lot of people do it for the wrong reasons. They just want to get famous or make a lot of money, which, there's something wrong with that. But if you're trying to do this for a long period of time, just like loving, creating content is really just the most important thing. So yeah, I guess transitioning into the last question before we start taking some Q&As. So again, going back to the title of this panel, Everyone is a Creator, it's really showing how the landscape, the content landscape is really just kind of blurring together as one. So obviously creators are now becoming media companies, the David Dobrik's and Mr. Beasts, the Brent Riveras, the Paul Brothers of the world. Then you have the legacy media companies like the Disneys, the Viacoms of the world. And lastly, there's brands like Chipotle and SeatGeek and EA that are really investing in creating content and also being characters in creators' content. I guess with all that being said, where do you guys see this going in the next 5 years? Because obviously like a lot is going on right now, but like where do you think like the direction that all this is going in, starting with Ben?
I think it's in its earliest days right now. I honestly feel like there's so much to be done with all of this creator and companies and all this stuff. I feel like it's so new and there's just so many great things to come because it is honestly like a very fresh thing. So in the next 5 years, I feel like it's really going to flourish and become something so great, and it's going to evolve into like everyone's day-to-day life. It kind of already has, but I feel like it's just going to become more and more popular and more like normal for people to look at and to work with.
Definitely. How about yourself, Pierson?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always going to be changing. I mean, when I was younger, I was watching cartoons, and now the kids who are young, they're watching, like creators and YouTube creators, and that's what they want to be. Like, I used to want to be an actress, and then now these kids are like, I want to be a creator. I want to be the next Ben Azelart. But I think it's always going to be evolving, and just as long as we're all evolving with it, that'll be the best for our business. That'll be the best for growth in general. But yeah, it's hard to say where it'll be in 5 years, but wherever it is, as long as we're evolving with it and adapting to the new changes, then it's best for everyone.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, Ben, how you mentioned that this is only the beginning. Because like I remember like 3 or 4 years ago, people were saying like influencers, like it's like a fad, or like it's gonna fade out. But the fact that this is potentially just the beginning just shows like how relevant all this is and how important it is for companies and brands and people to like invest in this space. RJ, what is your perspective, obviously being on the media side of things?
I'm fascinated by where we're going to be in 5 years. Thinking about 10 years ago, thinking about 5 years ago, think about how much has happened in the past 5 years. I'm interested to see what happens specifically in kids' content in 5 years from now. YouTube obviously has had the whole COPPA thing pop up this past year, and that has changed the landscape and how kids are creating content and consuming content on YouTube. I think TikTok came in, and people at times thought TikTok was going to go away very quickly, and that did not happen. And it's stronger than ever. So I'm actually interested to see what new social media platforms exist 5 years from now. I do think you're going to see more brands following the lead of ViacomCBS, Nickelodeon, brands like that. And I think you're going to see people embracing creators and influencers in a really big way. It hit Nickelodeon as one of the first places that was doing that because kids are watching us, and kids' content watching habits are changed so quickly. So I'm fascinated to see what kids are watching in 5 years. I think a brand like Nickelodeon will definitely exist in a really cool way. So really, really interested to see where we're going to be. I have no idea. It is interesting in COVID, with all of COVID-19, cable consumption, television consumption is up higher than it's been in many years. Same with YouTube, same with all the social platforms. And I think that that's going to carry over. I think that kids in this time are getting hooked on cable television again if they were not, and that's going to continue. I think it's going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, and I guess as an aside, like, just how has the COVID crisis just affected Nickelodeon's ability to create content? Because obviously, like, a lot of it is set up around production. So how's that been for the last few months?
So it hasn't hit us yet because yes, our productions have shut down, but Henry Danger has a spinoff that premiered this past year called Danger Force, and it's one of the really popular shows on Nickelodeon. They shot a quarantine episode. So last week or 2 weeks ago, they shot an episode from home, and that episode is going on television this weekend. We're still premiering a very similar amount of shows this summer as we would have ahead of the COVID crisis. Production is obviously really important, and our scripted shows like Side Hustle with Annie and Jaden, those shows need to go back into production at some point when everything is safe. But so far, our TV landscape and what we're making on YouTube, it's getting more views than ever. So we're going to keep premiering content. I think you're going to see, like Netflix, for example, last week announced a show by Genji Cohen, who created the show Weeds, and they're shooting that show completely in quarantine. Freeform today announced another show that's around COVID-19, finding love in COVID-19. It's a scripted show. So I think you're going to see media brands get very creative. When everyone's eyes are on cable television and on broadcast right now, when parents are working and where kids need to watch content where they're at home, there are lots of opportunities to have viewers come back to cable television. And so I think you're going to see media brands get very creative to keep the eyes on new content that's coming up.
It definitely makes a lot of sense, and it's just going to be interesting to see what happens in the next several months, because no one really knows how long all this is going to last. So yeah, it's obviously going to have to be a lot of adapting from all sides. So yeah, I guess we're going to start kicking it into Q&As to answer, the questions that the viewers have. So the first question, I feel like this is very tailored towards Ben, given it's very YouTube oriented in terms of launching a channel. So the first question from Bryant is, what's the best way to launch a YouTube channel, and how do you create a community around a social brand? So Ben, if you want to touch on that, given the fact that you built a YouTube channel from scratch to, I think, over 3 million in a few years.
Yeah, so I think my best advice to launch a YouTube channel and create a community around a social brand is I think it's personally easier to start on other platforms. So if it's starting on Instagram or TikTok and then translating that to YouTube, I feel like that is a better way to launch a YouTube channel. Starting from nothing on YouTube can be very challenging because the algorithm is different than like TikTok or something like that, where they push out everything to everyone. So starting from scratch on YouTube is quite a challenge. And if you can do it, that's amazing. But I would give my advice to start on other platforms and then translate that audience that you might have grown from that platform to YouTube and say, hey, subscribe to my YouTube. I make videos there. And then your TikTok followers or your Instagram followers will go to your YouTube and watch your content there.
And I guess, Ben, just like in your experience, so what is like the amount of followers that you think is a good amount? Obviously, like with yourself, you had like several million before you started YouTube, but like at a minimum, where do you think is a good baseline to start, I guess, promoting your YouTube channel?
Yeah, so it's different for everyone, and these numbers might sound like, I might make it seem like they're smaller, and some people they might seem like they're bigger. But if you have like 10,000 followers on TikTok or Instagram, like that's a good amount of people that are engaging with you and care to watch your stuff. So if you're telling those people to go watch your YouTube, a few hundred are probably going to go watch your YouTube, and that's a good base to start off. And that's just going to snowball effect into something a lot bigger, because when you're starting off, it always, each time you post something, it's always going to kind of be like more and more and more and more and more. When you're a big creator, obviously, like you can have like a base views, but when you're starting off, like that number is just going to increase. So I'd say like around like maybe 10,000 followers, and then push those people to your YouTube or something like that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And just to give yourself like a base lift, but just something that I've learned from you is it just takes a lot of time and just being consistent, because it's hard to get results immediately. Sometimes it takes like several months or even a few years to get traction. So regardless, it just takes time, right?
Mhm.
So I guess kicking it into the next Q&A question. So obviously, with your platforms, whether it's a Viacom brand or Ben and Pierson, you obviously have a platform, but how do you manage wanting to say something around social justice, but you're maybe worried about antagonizing your audience around being too political? So Ben, if you wanted to kick that one off.
Yeah, so I won't try to get too political and pick a side on my social medias. I normally look at like if it's promoting something that the majority of people care about. So if it's like go donate to this for relief for like if it was the Australia fires or for its COVID-19. If it's something that's completely positive, then I would love to get involved with it. But I definitely try to stay away from like opinions and political standpoints and stuff with my social medias, just because for me that's not where I want to bring that, and I want to make sure that like my audience just doesn't have to see like I guess too much of a political standpoint and that kind of stuff.
I think that makes sense. Pierson, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say anything that's even on the fence or raises an eyebrow, I would just kind of like maybe set it aside. I'd prefer my content. I would want people to come to my profiles and just think, hey, you know what, I'm here for a funny time. I'm not here to get political. They know what they're going to my Instagram for. They know what they're going to my TikTok for. They're not going for a political debate. They're not going for anything that could hinder them liking me for another reason. I would say anything that is even close, I just kind of, if I'm questioning it, then I would just set it aside.
Okay, and how about RJ from like a overarching brand perspective? I guess what is that approach for Viacom?
So our social team would have the better answer for this, but I can speak to what I've seen on Nickelodeon social accounts. I think there are some causes like LGBTQ plus rights where I have been very proud of where Nickelodeon on the transgender day of, I can't remember exactly what the term is, but there's a day that speaks to transgender rights, and Nickelodeon posted a flag then for LGBTQ plus rights in June in Pride Month. That's a huge initiative. So things like that, I'm really happy that Nickelodeon is not talking about it, but letting our audience know that whoever you are, we are there for you. I love that side of things. You're not going to see like Trump posts on Nickelodeon social media, or on the same other side, you're not going to see like Joe Biden posts on Nickelodeon social media. So that sort of politics won't find its way on our social media. It's a kids brand. A lot of our kids can't vote. What I will say is Nickelodeon has an initiative every year called Kids Pick the President when there's an election year. And that's something where Nickelodeon doesn't take a side or a stance, but we do poll the future leaders of America, which are the kids that are watching Nickelodeon. We do poll to see who they think is going to win the election. But again, that's a very apolitical, Nickelodeon doesn't take sides side of things. So I think media brands have to be really, really careful in their messaging for different sorts of causes and politics. And Nickelodeon, again, as a kids brand, I think we're going to be the most cautious of that sort of messaging. So that's where we come from. I do think kid creators, a lot of kids that we work with have causes that they support, whether it's in the environment, global warming, and it's really inspiring to see kids take a stance on those sort of issues that are going to impact the generations in the future. So that, as a person who's looking at talent, it's always great to find a kid that has a cause. Any cause is always good to see, and it shows that they care.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. So it's more of a balanced approach versus taking sides, which obviously, it makes sense given, the age that we live in. I guess the next question we have from Megan, I guess I'll kick this to Pierson. What is the importance of nailing down a niche, and how do you find yours? I've just noticed on your TikToks, Pierson, like it's very niche, especially with the last few videos around like the social networks. So if you want to provide insight into that, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, most definitely. Nailing down your niche is such an important thing, just because it helps you create content. Like otherwise, if I hadn't found out my niche, which I would consider it to be like comedy relatable sort of thing, it's so important just so then you know, okay, I have this idea. Is it within my niche? Okay, it's a great idea to go off of and continue posting that same kind of content. I started off with like fitness and inspirational. I've tried everything, and I finally found something that I actually loved. And whatever is easiest for you to relate to is easiest to make content. Otherwise, it turns into a chore. It turns into something that you don't want to be doing. It's not going to last a long time. Luckily, I found something that I enjoy. Whatever you enjoy, I feel other people will enjoy just as much to watch. If it's painful for you to write an inspirational post on Instagram, other people aren't going to react well either. So I think it's very important to find your niche. Yeah.
And I think it's really cool. I just mentioned like what you're personally interested in, because the videos that like are really just like, kind of, I don't say natural to you, but more so, that you're really focusing on, they're getting several million views. Comparing it to like, if you're creating like trends based off like what's just popping on the platform, those are getting like a few 100,000 views, right? So like really what you're just honing in on is just working across the board. So the next question from Raj, we'll kick this to RJ. So obviously like TikTok is super big now, and the Hollywood Reporter, piece came out, I think yesterday. So it's obviously been in the news, pretty consistently as of late. So will we start seeing TikTok stars in motion pictures, and does Gen Z care about going to see a movie in theaters?
I think yes. I think that thankfully people are major picture companies are being really, really smart about this. Yesterday, there was a part of that article where Charli D'Amelio is already in an animated movie. And a year ago, Charli, at that point, didn't really have a presence on TikTok. Her story's crazy. And we met with her recently, and she started, I believe, in June, and has grown to be the biggest person on TikTok in a very short period of time of less than a year. There are animated movies like The Angry Birds, etc., that have social stars, like JoJo's in an animated movie, for example. So I think, yes, it will probably start off just based on trends that I've seen in the past. I think it will probably start off in the animated motion pictures. And I think that then in the comedies, you'll start to see TikTokers in small, more stunty roles. And I think that as TikTokers and general YouTubers prove themselves in these smaller, stuntier roles, they'll start expanding more and more. And I would not be shocked if in the next 5 years, there's someone on TikTok right now or somebody who's not even there yet. But I think that some very smart writer and producer will take somebody known for TikTok, flip it on its head in a really cool way in a drama or a very smart comedy. And I think that that's going to be a very buzzworthy moment. And I'm excited to see that happen. And I'm excited to see who's the one that breaks that and that does that.
And I think what's interesting about that too is like a lot of major movie studios are using TikTok as a main marketing vehicle to promote their films. Like Trolls, for instance, like the latest one that just came out, direct to consumer, like TikTok was one of their main vehicles for marketing. So if you were to stick like a Charli type creator as like a voice actor in that film, like I can only imagine how the conversion would be.
Everyone's dream in every talent meeting that I'm ever in, the two dreams that they have, well, there are a few, but people still want to be on linear television, on cable, and they want to have their own scripted show. Even if they are a creator who did not grow up watching cable, that is a dream of theirs. Being in animation is something that happens often, where it's I think the most common dream. People want to have their voice in something, and acting in movies. Those are really important things for people. And I think, again, you're going to see more and more of that happening for TikTok.
Definitely. It's only a matter of time. So we have 1 minute left. I think we might be able to bump it into a few more minutes. So I guess the last question. So I guess each of you as creators, executives, whatever it may be, who are your favorite creators to watch? Ben, we'll kick it off with you.
I got a few favorites. I'd say Mr. Beast, David Dobrik, and that's it. That's like my two main favorites. I watch a lot of people, but that's my two main favorites.
Awesome. How about you, Pierson?
Obviously, David Dobrik. He's just so great at what he does. Same with Liza Koshy and Emma Chamberlain. They're all just so raw, and what you're watching appears to be so unplanned and makes you want to be their best friend because they're so themselves and they're so just natural and not stressed about anything. It just makes you want to be their best friend.
Awesome. And RJ, I know you might be a little political here, but what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm not saying this just because.
Ben, close your ears.
I'm not saying this because all of you are here, but I love Max, all of the people that are within your collective. I mean, I love watching the Brent and Lexi, the Ben content, Pierson. Now I'm loving watching you as well. I also love the David Dobrik's and the Lizas of the world, and happy that Nickelodeon has worked with them in the past and currently working on some fun things with. I love JoJo. We have a unique relationship because I cast her on a Dance Moms spinoff and Dance Moms back in the day. And watching JoJo's evolution and now working with her again has been fascinating. She's a very interesting case study. And then they're a little bit smaller, but there are these twins called the Coil twins that are on TikTok. And they're twins that are identical twins, both gay, both do drag. And it's one of the coolest things that I've seen on TikTok, and the way that they're making videos is really interesting. So I'm fascinated by them.
Love it. So yeah, I think we answered all questions. So appreciate everyone joining, Ben, Pierson, and RJ. And yeah, I guess we'll see you next time, if there's next time.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Thanks, everybody.
What's up, guys? Boye from TheFutureParty here. Thank you so much for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. We've got some amazing content coming your way. Don't miss out. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for more notifications. Check out more on TheFutureParty in the description. All the things. Peace out for now. See you later.